Wanna talk? So let's talk. Here. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk.
Welcome back. It's Talk to Solomon time. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stan Solomon, the host.
I'm Chief Steve Davis, the co-host.
And also co-hosting our friend Brent Johnson from freedomradio.us. Brent, good evening.
Thank you. Why is this Solomon? No.
I'm not quite sure. We're getting a little bit of a feedback here on our...
I'm right here.
Okay, very good.
I'm
All right.
right here, Stan.
Let us get to our guest. He is a very popular man right now. He is an attorney who specializes in the gun laws, if you will. His name is Lenden Eakin. Lenden, how are you?
Fine. That's pronounced Aiken, by the way.
Aiken, Lenden Eakin. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Now, whereabouts are you, Lenden?
I'm in Roanoke, Virginia.
Roanoke, Virginia. It's God's country out there. And it's very close to the center of all evil, Washington, D.C. I don't know where to start, but let me start with this. I have been a proponent of the God-given right to be able to defend yourself, and in my opinion, the obligation of every responsible American to have arms, to know how to use those arms, and to be ready, willing, and able to defend their family, their community, their state, and their country from evil from whencever it may come. I believe that was the concept behind our government and our creation in the Constitution. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. Historically, you are spot on.
Now, we have a president, may he rest in pieces shortly, who doesn't believe in any of that, who is going to tomorrow defy God, the Constitution, and the American way, and try and start the process of disarming and denuding Americans of their rights given by God and allegedly guaranteed by the Constitution.
Well, I'm anxious to see what he has to say. I don't know how it will do as far as passing constitutional muster, and ultimately the Supreme Court will decide its constitutionality. And case law in the Supreme Court is pretty strongly in support of the Second Amendment, the right to self-defense, the application of the Second Amendment to everyone, and the right to bear arms for the common defense. I'm not sure how he's going to get by the court without a big fight.
Well, let me ask you this question. Has the Supreme Court ever adjudicated an executive order?
I'm not aware of that, one way or the other. I don't know.
Because I don't believe he'll get any laws through Congress. That is pretty well the feeling. Nothing is guaranteed in this world, but they do not have sufficient votes from Republicans or Democrats to pass really anything. They can prance about and hide behind the kids as they always do, but an executive order that says that all gun dealers will do whatever because they are a part of the executive branch, which would make being able to get a weapon damn near impossible. That's one issue. And then, of course, the other issue is what Texas, Wyoming, and some other states are doing, and simply saying to the government, up yours. You know, screw you. Your laws are not going to be honored here, but if anyone comes in and tries to enforce them, we're going to put them in jail.
Well, I don't know that it'll go that far. It's possible, I suppose. These executive orders, if they are indeed in the nature of laws, will be reviewable by courts. And I don't know what they're going to say. I think we're going to see some legislation pass related to mental health issues and getting mental health problems into the database for background checks. And I think we're going to see background checks become mandatory for nearly every gun transfer, whether it's a licensed dealer or not. I'm not sure of that, but I'm hearing a lot of consensus, even among gun owners and gun dealers, that being able to walk up to the gun show parking lot or down the aisle of the gun show and buy a gun without a background check and without anybody knowing who you are, may not be able to continue.
Well, what about if I own a gun and I want to sell the gun to a neighbor, a family member, or even give them the gun? Are we going to be required? And of course we don't know, but might that be? And of course on the mental health issue, of course if you're a Democrat, one has to question your mental health, but and I don't mean to demean, the three that are sane, but the fact is that if anyone in your family has mental issues, does that mean no one in the family or no one in that home can have a gun? You see where that could go.
It means that the person with mental issues can't possess it. And I've seen that in the past where guns had to either be locked away where the person didn't have access or removed from the home until that person was no longer there. If they've been adjudicated mentally ill, that's already the situation, in legally speaking. It's the people who've not been adjudicated mentally ill who are able to buy a gun because they're not in the system. And so they can do, like the kid in Connecticut, the one at Virginia Tech, the one out in Colorado. All those people have mental health problems that might have shown up had anybody been paying proper attention and prevented them from, some of them, from buying guns at a gun store or through a dealer. Now, the one in Connecticut, of course, stole the guns from his mother, and there was no law that on now or in the future would have stopped what he did, unless there simply were not any firearms available. And I think that's the goal of a lot of people, is to have no firearms available, period.
All right, I have lots more questions, but I'm going to turn to Chief Steve here. He's 35 years in law enforcement, has dealt with loons with guns, most of them on his force. Go ahead, Chief.
That's funny. I also see an attack not just on guns, but on ammunition and on magazines and other components of firearms. But I'm thinking too about, you mentioned the court. So I have no faith in the Supreme Court at all. They've recently ruled that Obamacare is a tax, and the government can tax us for not doing something. So they could easily tax us for not having an underground gun safe, or tax us for not having whatever they decide, and make it impossible for us with that tax to own any kind of magazines or ammunition for our guns. I don't have any faith in their ruling at all. But let's say if Obama issues an executive order, what's the time limit and the procedure for us to stop that until the court reviews it?
Well, it'll go through the federal court procedure, start in district court, move to circuit court, and then to the Supreme Court, most likely, unless someone can convince the Supreme Court to hear it directly, which is unusual. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the Second Amendment and gun ownership in its two most recent Second Amendment cases. I don't know if you're aware of that. One of them is District of Columbia versus Heller, where it was a police officer who wanted to have a gun owned privately in his home, and Washington, D.C. said nobody can have a pistol in their home, period, nobody. And that was challenged and went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said D.C. was wrong, that everyone has a right to personal protection, and that a handgun is a perfectly logical weapon for self-protection in the home, and that statute was unconstitutional. And they did a similar thing with Chicago, McDonald versus City of Chicago, in 2010. And those two cases really lay out the history of the Second Amendment and the laws that apply. and I think you will find that you feel better about the Supreme Court if you read those cases. Now, the Supreme Court makeup may change in the future, and that could change some of the thought about the Second Amendment as the Supreme Court members are replaced by Obama appointees. But as of this moment, there's a majority who is pretty sure the Second Amendment protects the right to bear arms for self-defense, community defense, and state quite clearly in these cases that it's not their job to extinguish the Second Amendment, and they're not going to do that. I think if the American people want to give up their right to bear arms and defend themselves and their communities, then that Second Amendment will have to be repealed.
But there's a question now, too, is what is an arm we can bear? So, as Piers Morgan,
Piers Morgan said, a musket. Is an AR-15 a protected arm for Second Amendment purposes? Is going to be a hot question. And Senator Feinstein's bill would make it be treated like a machine gun and registered on the NFA registry, and require background checks and registration and a $200 tax for every transfer. And whether that will sustain scrutiny under the Second Amendment, I do not know. There are arguments both ways on that subject. Certainly it is the civilian version of the common military weapon, which is precisely what the courts say the militia is supposed to be armed with. But also it's certainly logical that an AR-15 is not necessary for you to be armed and defend yourself and your community. You could do it with an M1 Garand or an 03A3 or a hunting rifle or a shotgun, for that matter. Or, as you know, from your experience, whatever weapon is at hand will do if you don't have anything else. And I don't know how the court will look at that.
Well, the question here is, protect yourself against what? If someone is, trying to steal my garbage can, a slingshot might well do, or my 150-pound German Shepherd. But if you have a government gone amok, which we do, if you have local, state, or national government that has decided it's going to confiscate everything you have, which has happened around the world, the idea of the Second Amendment had not a damn thing to do with someone stealing your lunch. It had to do with tyrannical government. That's why we have the ability, and that's why we've remained a free country, as many of the countries around the world have been enslaved, because the first thing any tyrant does is disarm the people.
Well, historically speaking, there's some foundation for the Second Amendment to be in response to a potential tyrant, because we had just thrown the English tyrants out of the country when the Second Amendment was passed, and that was still in people's minds. But there's not much Supreme Court support for the idea that the Second Amendment is there so you have the right to basically rebel against your own government. I don't think you're going to get any sympathy for that point of view in the courts. The court's point of view is that it's there for your common defense, not against your own government, but against enemies of whatever stripe, invaders or other mass criminals is foreseeable, like when there's some sort of disaster and a lot of looting and violence goes on, then being able to defend yourself is important, and your community is important then. And the joint common defense aspect of it envisions you being part of a state-controlled militia organization, not federal necessarily, but state. And it's not intended to protect the right to have a private army and do what you want and fight the government with your private army. That is definitely not what the Second Amendment says, or history proves that it would be for that purpose. It's for the purpose of allowing you to defend your home, your family, your community, and the wider common defense if that becomes necessary.
Well, taking that point, and I respectfully disagree, but taking that point, if there is a riot, for whatever reason there's a riot, like maybe the team in your city won a championship, and of course there's a group of people that thinks that any excuse will do to riot, loot, steal, rape, rob, and act like a Democrat. So let's say, for the sake of discussion, there is a riot. What exactly are you going to do with a 2-round shotgun?
Well, you mean if the riot comes to your home?
Bingo. Because I've had that happen not once but twice. Once in Indianapolis, once in Cincinnati. In both cases, I had a few friends and a few thousand rounds and a few dozen weapons, and the rioters, even though they're basically morons, figured ours was the wrong place to go. And so nothing happened.
Yeah, and that's I guess a discussion of what firearms should be allowed for self-defense and common defense and what shouldn't. We know that machine guns and short-barrel shotguns and rifles are not allowed.
Yes, they are. You just have to have a license for them.
Well, they are if they're registered properly.
Right.
But that's such a cumbersome and difficult process, and the Firearms Owners Protection Act of 1986 actually stopped further registration of machine guns completely for civilian ownership. So that's a clear restraint on ownership by civilians that has not been to the Supreme Court and challenged. That's what keeps you from owning an M16, even if and a new M16 coming off the assembly line cannot be registered for civilian ownership under federal statute. And I don't think the Supreme Court has looked at that to consider whether that's constitutional or not. But I think likely they would find that a full automatic weapon is not necessarily an appropriate weapon for civilian ownership, even for future militia use.
Yeah, very few.
Semi-automatic is going to be the real question. No question, bolt actions will be fine under everybody's current discussion. And bolt actions are still in combat today. They're certainly fine weapons for defense and of all sorts.
Well, primarily for snipers, but the reality is a semi-automatic, which is, of course, what an AR-15 is, unless it's been altered, is no different than any other a Glock or a pistol or whatever. And you have Feinstein and her ilk that are saying they don't want you to have the ability to be able to pull the trigger, fire around, and then just pull the trigger again. Well, that would mean revolvers are out. I have probably 50 cases in the last 30 days of people who have saved their own lives or the lives of their family members, their children, because bad guys, in one case, a woman shot a guy 5 times and he still walked out of the house.
Yeah, I heard about that story, and where she had a 6-shot revolver. And that's obviously you want the best weapon available if you're in a defense situation, whatever that is. And certainly I have every sympathy for the argument that the responsible adults should be able to make that choice for themselves. And there's no. But I don't know, in light of the Sandy Hook killings of little children with an AR-15, that we're going to see that everything is going to be left alone. There's a lot of emotional power there that is rallying behind something being changed.
Well, they're talking about large capacity magazines, but the reality is, this guy, this young person that did this, could have gone into that school where idiots have made sure that he would be unopposed, except by women and babies. He could have gone in there, and frankly, most of those people were not killed with the AR-15. They were killed with a semi-automatic handgun.
Well, he could have used an axe and done almost the same thing.
Or he could have driven his car into the building, filled with gasoline, and dropped a match in the gas tank.
Well, sure. I mean, people like that who are determined to do harm are going to find a way to do harm. and there's not a law you can pass that's going to change that. They don't care what the punishment is for breaking a law, so laws can't stop people like that. Other people have to stop people like that, and I think the anti-gun community would like to see accessibility of guns reduced for people like that. The gun community would like that too. I think there's just some disagreement about how to accomplish it.
Well, the idea
nobody wants a mentally ill, homicidal person with weapons, especially around children. Nobody wants that.
But the reality is that if, just as we saw in a number of other tragedies, when you have an armed, responsible person around, most often they can minimize or eliminate the potential harm to the others.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question about that. Somebody on site who has the ability to stop the attacker is the best answer. Now, whatever that ability is, whether it's another firearm or some other kind of weapon, as long as they can stop them, then they're stopped. Don't worry about the legal part later.
And amen. I mean, all right, look, just a minute. We're going to run out of time. I want to get Brent to the conversation. Brent, you have a comment, please?
Thank you. I have several comments here. With all due respect, I must disagree on several points. In the first place, the Supreme Court doesn't make law. Okay, well, if the Supreme Court does something that violates the meaning of the Second Amendment, it is the Supreme Court that is wrong. Second Amendment meaning has not changed. Back in 1791, militiamen, the general body of the people within a certain age range. The Dick Act of 1902 confirmed that fact. So state organized militia has nothing whatsoever to do with the militia referred to in the Second Amendment. Additionally, I have certain concerns about the restrictions on mental health. Today, everybody is considered to be mentally disabled in some form. Does that mean if you're diagnosed as having AD, attention deficit disorder, you are mentally incompetent to own a gun? I could see mental health as being a determining factor for whether or not you can own guns. That would be a broad paintbrush against just about every American, because today psychologists have it that nobody is normal. Everybody is mentally in some form disabled. Regarding executive orders, I'm not certain, but I believe the Congress has an ability to attack and challenge executive orders within some 60 or 90 days of their signing. I'm not absolutely sure on that, but I believe Congress does have that ability. My final comment involves the idea that for the last 8 years, I guess, we have been operating the legal framework of the federal government has been operating under administrative law, under public policy rather than under public law. And the executive orders do indeed control the administration. I believe this is what Obama is going to try to do. Use his executive authority to inform the administrative agencies that they will act in a certain way. I'm curious as to what you think if it goes to the Supreme Court, what you think the Supreme Court would do in terms of weighing Obama's authority over the administrative agencies, which are extra-constitutional, those are more corporate entities, versus the fundamental constitutionally protected rights. How do you think they would weigh those two?
Lenden?
I am not sure that the Supreme Court will overturn any executive order that is not clearly violating the Constitution. I would doubt it. And, of course, I can't say for sure, and nobody can until they put it before the court and see what they rule. And I can tell you that I know that legislation has been used to reverse executive orders in the past. The executive order says one thing, and Congress then passes a law that says, no, we're not going to do it that way, and changes. Because executive orders are based on law that's in existence in some form, usually legislation. And the Congress can clarify that legislation to overturn an executive order if it so desires. And, of course, all that process is cumbersome and lengthy, and and difficult. And it's going to be a show for the next 2 months. The whole process, we're going to be watching it.
You got that right. We're out of time here. I want to make sure I mentioned your website. It's rvalaw.com.
That's my law firm website. My Class 3 firearms business website is class3only.com.
Class3only.com. Lenden, we really appreciate you coming on. We know it was relatively short notice. You're going to be, I'm sure, pulled 17 ways from Sunday because everyone's going to want clarification. Everyone's going to want to understand what's going on. And I have a feeling that we're going to have things happening within the legislative system, within the legal system, and some things happening outside of that system. And we'll have to see how it all balances in the end. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, sir.
It's been a pleasure. All right, folks, take a quick break, and then we'll have Dr. Alan Keyes with us. This is Talk to Solomon. You have a computer, if you're alive today, which means you have a hard drive, which means it's going to break down. Mosey, the backup people, for thousands, for Stan, for thousands of people, for tens of thousands of people, is simply common sense. You go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and sign up. It's just a few dollars a month. Let me tell you something. We had a break-in. They stole our whole computer. You know what? When they take the computer, you can't recover anything, but we had Mosey. We had the backup. We were able to restore everything simply by buying another computer. cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and give yourself common sense, peace of mind, great value, the best thing you've ever done. Sooner or later, it's going to be Mosey, the backup people. Hey, my name is Stan Solomon, and you know if I have something to say, I'll say it. And I'll only tell you the truth because I'm a Republican, not a Democrat. Democrats always lie. Republicans only lie half the time. I don't lie at all. This is the Fuel Mule. It's an extraordinary product that was developed by a friend of mine, an engineer, and it increases the fuel mileage on your vehicle. If you have a combustion engine, this will increase your mileage by 10 to 20%. It bolts around your fuel line. You can install it yourself or have your mechanic do it. It is an extraordinary item, and it flat works. I've been using it for more than 10 years. It's increased my mileage on every vehicle I put it on, and by the way, it will last forever. You can get rid of your vehicle, just take it off and put on the next one. Go to cpnlive.com. You'll have more information there. You can order it right there. We absolutely guarantee you'll be satisfied. The Fuel Mule. It's a way to kick down your cost of fuel and kick up your mileage. Don't you love the name? I thought of it. The Fuel Mule. Let me ask you a question. Do you like being sick? I have in my hand an incredible product. It's called TR10 Supercolloidal Silver. TR10 stands for a trace to the negative 10th power. The particles in this silver product are 6 to 8 angstroms, 6 to 8 10 billionths of a meter. Now listen to me. Silver has been the magic bullet for all of human existence. The Egyptians used silver instruments. We use silverware. They put silver in your teeth because nothing can grow on silver. Silver will kill anything but liberalism. I'm working on that. This product, you go to cpnlive.com, buy 1 quart of this product. It will last you for a very long time. Anytime you feel like you've been exposed to something bad, take some of this product, spray it in your mouth, or take a little bit and gargle it, swallow it. It will kill any pathogen. The average antibiotic kills 10 to 20 different pathogens. This product will kill 700 plus. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your doctor a favor. He's tired of seeing you. Get Supercolloidal Silver. Go to cpnlive.com, order the product. It's $29.95 plus shipping. I think it's $39.95 delivered any place in America right to your door. It's worth 10 times that. Check it out. If you're not 100% happy, just return it and we'll give you your money back.